beneath the churning misty river of the kingdom of Avalon, where towering castles intertwined with ancient magic, a gaunt figure was sinking into the frigid depths. This was Arthur, someone who, in the eyes of the aristocratic elite, was nothing more than an orphaned scavenger. Even as his final breath threatened to escape his lungs, his hand remained tightly clenched around a glowing herb, the sole hope of survival for Martha, the impoverished woman who had rescued him from the ashes of the slums 15 years ago. Yet, just as the darkness of death seemed ready to swallow the young man whole, a blinding golden light suddenly erupted from the very bottom of the abyss, enveloping his rapidly chilling body. This was not the end, rather, it was the blood-soaked beginning of a buried legend in the Kingdom of Mist. Arthur's life had always been a tragic and unjust epic. Just hours prior, he had been forced to his knees on the freezing marble floor of the Sterling estate. Dowager Sterling, a bitter, aging witch with blind eyes yet obsessed with primordial prophecies, had forced her beloved granddaughter, the beautiful and proud Lady Elara Sterling, into a blood oath marriage with Arthur. The prophecy dictated that only 120 the blood of the lowly bearing a jade heart could salvage the crumbling magical seals and save the Sterling family from ruin. Arthur had secretly loved Elara since the days he was merely a dirt-streaked sweeper, watching her through a window draped in beetle vines. He accepted this marriage with a sincere heart, willing to use his own life to protect hers. However, in Elara's eyes, this marriage was the ultimate humiliation. She believed that this deceitful orphan had used dark witchcraft to trick her grandmother. Elara's incredibly soft hand, accustomed only to plucking melodious tunes on a harp, swung through the air, delivering a resounding slap to Arthur's face. With red, tear-rimmed eyes, she threw a dark magic-infused parchment roll at him, a severance pact, forcing him to live as a silent shadow, forever forbidden from touching her. Arthur offered no explanation, he merely swallowed the metallic taste of blood and used a raven quill pen to sign his name under the disdainful gaze of the entire family. The days that followed were a living hell. The Sterling family's fortunes not only failed to recover but plummeted further into the abyss due to the incompetence of its leaders. Just then, Lord Tristan Vane, a man of half-wolf noble blood with a sinister smile and immense wealth, appeared as a false savior. Tristan presented an arrogant proposal. He would yield the Apex Trade Covenant with the Zenith Empire, the most powerful faction controlling Avalon's entire underground magical ley lines, to the Sterling family. On one single condition: Elara must tear up her pact with Arthur and become his wife. To force Arthur to leave voluntarily, Tristan used his influence to blockade the city's entire healer network, cutting off the supply of the life-saving herbs that sustained Aunt Martha's fragile life. He stood before Arthur, sneering as he crushed the medicinal flower under his silver-studded heel, whispering venomous words about the young man's weakness. But Arthur, his eyes burning with a resilient fire, spat on those expensive shoes and resolutely refused. Consequently, Dowager Sterling flew into a rage, using her scepter to beat and banish him from the estate gates in the middle of a howling, stormy night, before Tristan's henchmen cornered him on the Bridge of Sighs and pushed him into the River of Death. Returning to the present moment, at the bottom of the deep abyss beneath the river, when Arthur opened his eyes, he did not see hell, but rather a colossal crystal cavern illuminated by tens of thousands of Pumana stones. Standing before him were two powerful figures to whom anyone in Avalon would bow in reverence: Gideon, the elder knight guarding the imperial palace, and High Priestess Seraphina, who was also the ruling empress of the Zenith Empire. They knelt in unison, their starlight silk cloaks sweeping the ground, and spoke in resounding voices, "Greetings to the sole bloodline of the Pendelton Dynasty, Lord Arthur." Arthur's mind was jolted as if torn apart by 1,000 lightning bolts. In the dim magical glow, Seraphina unveiled a sealed curtain of memories. He was not an abandoned orphan. He was the rightful heir to the Pendelton family, the greatest alchemists to ever rule the continent, the keepers of the Holy Grail of Resurrection, an elixir capable of reversing death and manipulating fate. 15 years ago, his parents had been assassinated by a dark faction in a brutal massacre to steal this very formula. Before dying, they used their last remnants of magic to hide him in the slums, secretly splitting the Holy Grail formula into 2 memory crystals. Ironically, one half was currently sealed within the underground vault of the Sterling estate, an artifact the cruel Dowager Sterling had always considered a family heirloom, completely oblivious to how it was used. Fury and agony tore at Arthur's heart, but at the same time, a primordial power known as astral monarchy began to surge through his veins. He refused to reclaim the throne immediately. The scavenger boy of the past had died beneath the Misty River. The one who rose was an alpha wolf hiding in sheep's clothing. Arthur demanded that Gideon and Seraphina keep his identity an absolute secret. He had to return to the Sterling family's lair himself, not only to retrieve his parents' relics, but also to crush Tristan Vane's arrogance and prove to Elara who truly ruled her sky. The next day, within the candlelit grand hall of the Sterling Tower, just as Tristan was preparing to hold the engagement ceremony and proudly boasting that he had invited Empress Seraphina to sign the Apex Trade Covenant, the massive oak doors were suddenly kicked open. Arthur strode in, his cloak drenched, yet his demeanor was as imposing as a god of war stepping out from a myth. He publicly challenged Tristan. Amidst the astonishment and disdain of the aristocratic crowd, he declared that Elara herself, through her own talent and virtue, would single-handedly secure government from the Zenith Empire without needing the filthy charity of any man. Through a secret telepathic command sent to Seraphina, Arthur had orchestrated a flawless play. When the presentation began, Empress Seraphina appeared in blinding radiance, directly ignoring Tristan as if he were nothing but foul air. She announced that the Zenith Empire would only accept cooperation with one single person, Lady Elara Sterling. The entire hall erupted in sheer disbelief. Those who schemed to steal the credit, such as the cousin Percival and the treacherous female cousin Vivian, had their mouths magically sealed by Seraphina, stripping them of all standing. Tristan screamed maniacally, insulting Seraphina, only to have both his legs broken by the Zenith Imperial Guards, thrown out onto the streets like a stray dog. His career and noble prestige officially vanished into thin air. Faced with the absolute pressure of the Zenith Empire, Dowager Sterling was forced to grit her teeth and hand over the family scepter, the symbol of the family's lordship, to Elara, transforming her from a shunned girl into the most powerful woman in the Sterling household. However, the storms did not stop there. On a night of a blood moon, Arthur was ambushed in an alleyway by a group of night assassins sent by a hidden figure. Though he easily dispatched them with his physical prowess, Arthur suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. His heart beat erratic like war drums. An elderly dark silhouette appeared, demanding he hand over the Holy Grail formula. It was only thanks to the timely arrival of Knight Gideon that the dark figure retreated. At this moment, Gideon painfully revealed the cruel truth. Arthur bore the Bloodstone curse, a congenital heart defect caused by the side effects of magic that the Pendelton bloodline endured. The only antidote to suppress it was his parents' formula, currently in the hands of the Sterling family. Learning this, Arthur began his search. By pure chance, Elara showed him an antique oil painting of her late grandfather holding a tiny platinum jar. She explained that it was a family heirloom hidden in the cipher safe, the key to which was held by her grandmother and only passed down to the head of the family. Human ambition and greed are always the darkest kind of magic. Unwilling to see Elara hold power, the cousin Percival took advantage of the dowager's deep slumber to steal the platinum jar, bringing it to the Goblin Black Market, a trading hub for all deceitful creatures, hoping to sell it for cash. At the same time, the Blackwood family, sworn enemies of the Light faction, led by Lord Cedric and his foolish son, were coveting to buy the Sterling family's treasure. Arthur employed a masterful illusion spell, turning a worthless clay pot into an artifact radiating a brilliant aura, tricking the young Blackwood master into buying the fake at an exorbitant price. As soon as the transaction concluded, Arthur descended upon the underground market like a lightning storm, defeating dozens of Blackwood's elite bodyguards barehanded, and snatching back the real platinum jar. Upon opening it, he found a glowing memory crystal, but ironically, it contained exactly half of the Holy Grail of Resurrection's puzzle. Infuriated by Gideon's concealment, Arthur used this very crystal as leverage, forcing the old knight to swear a blood oath, vowing never to interfere with his methods of revenge and to keep his identity hidden until he had fully reclaimed his sovereignty. But fate always seems to enjoy mocking the strongest. Just when Arthur thought he had the chessboard under control, devastating news struck like a thunderbolt. Aunt Martha, his second mother, had died. Not from illness, but because the carriage taking her to the sanatorium had been crushed on the central bridge by an out-of-control, colossal iron golem carriage. Standing before the freezing corpse of his gentle aunt, Arthur wept tears of blood. The sky of Avalon that night was dyed a crimson red. The resounding thunder reflected the agonizing pain and towering fury of the Pendelton heir. The traces of dark magic left at the scene pointed directly to the Blackwood family. Lord Cedric Blackwood, out of spite over the incident at the black market, had struck a vicious blow. The 13 celestial strikes. The day of the decisive battle arrived, witnessed by thousands of Avalon nobles. Valeria, wielding a greatsword ablaze with black fire, lunged at Arthur like a ferocious beast. Initially, Arthur deliberately concealed his true strength, using wit and fluid footwork to prolong the match, feigning a disadvantage to force Valeria into revealing all her lethal moves. The stands roared. Elara, sitting on the high balcony, clenched her hands until they bled. For the first time, her heart pounded erratically with fear for the life of the husband she had once rejected. And then, as the arrogant Valeria exhausted her energy for a finishing blow, a cold glint flashed in Arthur's eyes. He executed the 13th strike. An invisible, explosive shockwave burst from his palm, not only shattering the great sword but also sending Valeria flying, crashing heavily against the cobblestone arena wall. Victory belonged to Arthur amidst the terrifying silence of the entire arena. But just as Valeria struggled to stand, thick black blood suddenly spewed from her lips. Her whole body convulsed before she collapsed onto the arena floor. The royal physicians rushed forward in a panic, declaring that she had been struck by a primordial lethal poison, a poison not administered by Arthur, but caused by the magical backlash from the forbidden arts the Blackwood family had been secretly cultivating. Standing in the stands, Lord Cedric bellowed in despair upon seeing his beloved daughter drawing her final breaths. At this moment, from the dark corners, Knight Gideon's voice echoed through a sound transmission spell, pouring directly into Arthur's ear. "My lord, the time has come. The second crystal fragment of the Holy Grail of Resurrection is the only thing that can cure lethal poison flowing in that wench's veins. Old Cedric holds it. Now is the time we corner him. Force him to his knees to offer up your formula, or watch his daughter rot into dust." Arthur's gaze slowly shifted towards Cedric, a cruel smirk blooming on the lips of Avalon's uncrowned king. The cold-blooded game had now truly begun.